Hello, I'm Cadet Lease from Detachment 752, the Raptor. Today I'm joined by retired Lieutenant Colonel Kaster, who was once the former commander of Detachment 752. Although he was very extensive in his Air Force career, he also has an opportunity at the university to teach in environmental science and environmental engineering. How are you doing today, sir?
Good. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you and the cadets today. Thank you.
It's good to have you here. So we're going to start off with a few questions. So one of my questions for you, retired Lieutenant Colonel Kaster, is how does weather play an important role in the mission in our Air Force?
It plays an important role in anything that we do. In my Air Force career, I spent 26 years as a weather officer. I did everything from space shuttle support to putting bombs on target, helping people. Army support. Army doesn't have meteorologists, don't have weather, so I got a lot of Army time and deployments. And also the fact that history is full of failed and successful military operations when people considered or didn't consider weather. There is, my son played baseball at Wilkes, and there's the Navy SEAL Museum down in Florida, Fort Pierce, Florida.
Okay.
So we went down there, and actually, I'd go to the museum. There's the SEAL Museum. And I show this to my students in my class, because I say weather is important for situational awareness. And I took a photo of the wall where Navy Special Ops considers the top priorities in their mission planning and mission execution. And what do you think the #1 bullet is on that wall? For the
meet weather and the conditions.
Weather, yeah. Weather is critical for mission planning and for their operations. When I show that to my class, people kind of sit up and go, gosh, if the Navy SEALs think weather is important, and then maybe I should pay attention and maybe be important. Even in my OPRs, performance reports, people, my higher commanders, generals, they would call me the SWO, the Staff Weather Officer. They would call me the force multiplier, because if you know the weather and your enemy doesn't, you can get within their decision cycle and you win. Sun Tzu wrote it 3,000 years ago in The Art of War, that if you know the weather and you know the terrain, not the geology, what's in the ground, but if you know the terrain, victory is assured. You have success. And that goes into military operations as well as civilian operations. So, and I say it's so important that even if you're not an aviator or shooting bullets down range, weather is critical. I can talk for hours about that. But even if you're an executive officer for a wing commander or a general officer, and you get a VIP that comes in and you have to plan the golf tournament, or Mrs. is having a picnic, and you're helping arrange that. And I stress the fact that if you don't consider the weather and the colonel, the general is planning something, they may not ask about the weather, but you need to. Because if there's a thunderstorm that comes through and blows the tents away for Mrs., a picnic on her, for the folks, or a golf tournament for a congressman, senator coming in, and you have no backup plans, your career can be pretty short, because they'll blame you. They'll say, why didn't you consider the weather?
Yeah.
So anytime you do a mission, operation, planning, execution, even if it's something like a picnic or a golf tournament, you have to consider it. You always have backup plans, and you will succeed. And again, history is full of commanders, generals that didn't consider the weather, and they had major malfunctions.
Yeah, as we can see, the weather is very important in the Air Force mission. We even have special operators ourselves that can major meteorology and then join our special forces as well. We'll move on to our next question, if that's all right.
Yes, sir.
So what has been the most exhilarating thing you have ever done in your life?
Yeah, that's a tough one to answer, because after I served 32 years in the military, 6 years enlisted Army in the infantry, and 26 years in the active duty Air Force as a meteorologist, weather officer. I would say almost every day is exhilarating in some way. When you can serve your nation in whatever capacity, it's exhilarating. But there's two things that come to mind that have happened since I retired. 25 years ago, I supported two operations in the Bosnian operation, the Balkans.
Mm-hmm.
Deny flight and provide promise. Deny flight was to keep the Serbian, Yugoslavian Air Force suppressed. They couldn't fly operation and drop bombs. We were trying to stop a war there. The other, provide promise, was the resupply of food and medicine to Sarajevo. And I did that. I was the weather, I led a NATO weather team back in '94, way before you guys were even born. And I worked in the CAOC, the Combined Air Operations Center, and I worked for a U.S. 3-star and an Italian Air Force 3-star in this combined operation. Anyway, I did my job. I did my duty, and about 25 years later, I'm here as a professor. I'm on a group that brings United Nations speakers to campus to talk about issues from the UN. And one of the young men was, he was one of the liaison group for the UN. It was the head coming here to talk. And we were having lunch together in the sub. And we were comparing stories. And I told him what I did in the Air Force, and he was a little boy in Sarajevo. And around the table, he got emotional about it, because the food and the medicine that he and his family needed was airlifted in on the support that I provided. I had never talked to a Bosnian who lived through that, and he had never met an Air Force person who helped keep him and his family alive.
Yeah.
And so when we parted, he hugged me, and again around the table there was other Wilkes professors, and they were all crying. He was crying, and I just said, that I was doing my duty. And then just a couple of years ago, a Marine was here, a Marine first sergeant, and I did another mission. I deployed for NATO for Operation Iraqi Freedom. And it's a long story, but I was a shift director of, I'm an Air Force weather officer in a NATO command, Force Command, and I'm the shift director doing naval operations. There was two major operations that NATO did. One was called STROG, the Straits of Gibraltar operation, and the other one was, we call it, at the time it was called Shadow Ops. It was an interdiction of naval ships that would supply the enemy in Iraq, and they would come ashore in Lebanon and Syria, and then the weapons and ammunition rockets would get into Iraq. Well, I did that, and I was having a beer with this first sergeant, and I told him what I did. And he reached across the table and he shook my hand and he said, "You probably saved my life." And I asked how, and he said, "We heard about people like you who were intercepting the weapons that were trying to kill us." When I got back to NATO, I was at SHAPE at the time, and I was deployed. And General Jones, who was SACEUR, there was three of us who came back. I was in one of the three, and there was a Spanish and a UK officer and me. And General Jones said he said, you're not going to get medals for what you did, and your nation's not even going to know what you did. But what you did saved lives and helped the mission against terrorism. And you think back on what you did 20, 15 years ago, and you fast forward, and when you hear those two stories, you don't even know what you're doing today, that 20 years from now somebody will say, "Well, thank you, for what you do and what you did." So I think there's so many more stories about exhilarating things, just being able to serve your nation for 32 years is a real privilege and honor, and that every day was exhilarating to me.
Yes, and that's what's exciting about the different opportunities we have in the Air Force as we move forward.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have any initiatives or messages to students or cadets as they go through their ROTC career or even their college career?
Yeah, that's a good question. Even though I've been retired 9 years, I teach my students in my classes here the core values. I believe in my heart that if you live your core values, that you will be successful. And when you get old like me, you can look yourself in the mirror and say you did it the right way. I think for a young cadet striving to become an officer in the Air Force, you need to live the core values, but you need to set the bar for your airmen and your other officers to live those values. I think always remember why you're serving. It's for the nation. You take an oath to the Constitution. The Constitution is a piece of paper, it's a document. And it is a very strong document, especially when we're going through very difficult times, like the wars, World War II and World War I, and we're facing tyranny in the world. But it's also a fragile thing. And when things are going too good, it's easy to forget. It's easy to just to not consider those words, because those words are they're a dream, but they're a reality. And they are so important to us as a nation. We couldn't even sit here today without the sacrifices of people before us and the veterans. And I think any cadet, any American should go to Arlington. Or if you're in Europe, you should walk Omaha Beach and see the cemeteries and see the sacrifices that have been made for us. And in the movie Saving Private Ryan, it's one of my favorite scenes. It's the very end when Captain Miller is dying on the bridge, and he asked Ryan to come closer, and his last words are to Ryan is, "Earn this, earn it," and then he dies. And I think every American should wake up in the morning and hear those words, because I think it'll make you a better person, it'll make you a better citizen, and I think it'll make you a better officer or an airman or soldier, Marine, sailor, anybody serving your nation. And I think we should earn it, the sacrifices that have been made for us. And I also just want to say that as a commander, I was a commander multiple times, that you're going to be making some tough decisions. Your decisions may have people die. You may force people to lose their careers for punishment, you know. And there's always a time to speak, but there's also a time to listen. And there's a line in a Jimi Hendrix song, knowledge speaks, wisdom listens. And there is so much talk that goes on, but a good leader will listen and make decisions based on knowledge and listening, because the mission is important. It's the most important thing you will do, but your people execute the mission. And if you don't take care, as an officer and a commander, you've got to take care of your people to make sure the mission gets taken care of for the nation. And so those are some of the little gold nuggets that humbly just offering to you guys in the cadet world. And I, you know, you're going to be facing a lot of things soon. When you get commissioned, you're going to be leading men and women, and they're going to be looking to you for that leadership. So there are things you need to be aware of, and I hope that some of that, what I give to you today, can help propel you into the future and be a successful officer.
Yes. Well, I'd like to thank you for your time, Lieutenant Colonel Kaster.
Well, I thank you for wanting to serve our nation.
Thank you.
Because that's a very important thing. Not a lot of people want to do that. And the sacrifices that you're going to make, you don't even know you're going to make yet. And I, as an old guy, I appreciate that you and your fellow cadets are willing to do that
And
for
we
the
appreciate
nation.
being able to sit down with you and learn from you as well.
Thank you.
So that is all for now. Please go and follow our social media pages for Detachment 752, as there is much more to come for the Raptor in the future.